The Drive with Tim Donnelly, 99.9 The Fan. Derrick Brown, we saw this a couple of days ago. Derrick Brown, defensive tackle for the Carolina Panthers, signed a big, fat new contract. Many were worried about it, right, because Brian Burns had been moved on, and were they going to get a long-term deal, or were they going to do the same thing they did with Brian Burns, which is let it drag on until it's past the point of no return. Derrick Brown's new contract, very good. It's not the sign of something new completely in Carolina. Not yet, at least. Not yet, at least. I'm seeing a lot of, so this is great. They finally locked up one of their good young players. It's different now, right? It's different. They let all their good players walk before. They couldn't hold any of them in town before. Now they have them locked up for a new, big, fat contract. Whoa, new era in Carolina. If he plays out the contract, it might be the start of a new era in Carolina. Because the easy thing to do is look at this, and I saw a few different media personalities and fans doing this. The 3 first-round picks before Derrick Brown, not still on the team, right? They're all off the team. The 3 first-round picks in the years before Derrick Brown are not Panthers. So locking him up to a long-term deal feels like, hey, this is different. But what you don't realize is 2 of the players drafted in the 3 first rounds before him were also signed to long-term deals. They signed DJ Moore to a second deal. They signed Christian McCaffrey to a big fat contract of a second deal. Signing the contract hasn't necessarily been the problem. Keeping them once you do and not getting second-guessed and not panicking and selling in a trade for less is the problem. I said this with Seth Jarvis yesterday for the Canes because Seth Jarvis, he's now over 60 points. He has 30 goals. He's leveled up this year in a pretty serious way for the Canes. And Dennis was producing the show. We kind of made the joke that those stats sound like money, right? Seth Jarvis this upcoming off season is going to be expecting some nice offers coming his way from the Canes. And I wanted to emphasize, I said this yesterday, that's not a bad thing. That's not like the Canes aren't going, oh, man, we're going to have to pay Seth Jarvis so much more. They're going, yes, Seth Jarvis is playing so well, we have to pay him more. Would have been nice to have locked him up. Would have been nice if we could find a way. But it's a net positive when your first-round picks play like difference makers and you have to pay them. That's good. The fact that DJ Moore was good enough to get a long-term contract should have been a sign that the Panthers had something moving in the right direction. Here are 4 consecutive first-round picks for the Panthers. It's DJ Moore, it's Brian Burns, it's Derrick Brown, it's Brian Burns, it's DJ Moore, it's Christian McCaffrey. Those are 4 hits. They went 4 for 4 in consecutive first rounds. That's not easy. Go look at all the busts go look at any 2017 draft and look at how many of them are still playing at a high level, still worth a big amount of money. They hit on 4 consecutive firsts. It's what they do after they hit that's been a problem. So this new staff, this new organization comes in. It's Dan Morgan, it's Dave Canales, it's their whole crew, right? It's the cap and contracts guy from Kansas City. They get in a room. They're going, great, we hit on Derrick Brown. Let's sign him to a big fat extension. They do that. Okay, you've now gotten as far as the previous regime got with just about all their first-round picks, aside from Brian Burns. But even they might have gotten there. They might have decided to pay him if they still had the ability to do that. It's not like he walked for free. The hard part is once you pay a guy, sticking to your guns on it, right? Once you pay a guy, you're saying we can build around him. Right? When the Canes pay Seth Jarvis, they're saying we can build around him. When the Canes paid Sebastian Aho with a contract extension last year, they're saying we can build around him. Now the hard part is building around him, and you can't second guess. Because that's what they did, right? They paid Christian McCaffrey and said we can build a championship contender around him. Then a couple years later, they were like, actually, we spent too much on the running. We weren't right. So how can we? And they traded him and didn't even get a first-round pick back. There's two hard things to do, two difficult things to do when it comes to organizing a team through the draft, building a team through the draft. One, you have to find the right players and pick them. There's a whole cottage industry built into that. Scouts, director of college scouting, GMs, assistant GMs, the people on Twitter that have Twitter handles like Draft Guru 47. Like there's a whole cottage industry. Mel Kiper and Todd McShay, all about that. They did the hard part. They nailed their first round picks. The second part is finding the complementary pieces to go around them to make up for the fact that you're paying them a lot of money. And maybe saying goodbye to some players that you don't want to say goodbye to. This upcoming, I keep coming back to the Canes because it's playoff time. It's almost playoff time and everyone's into it. There's going to be some players that the Canes don't want to say goodbye to this offseason that they have to say goodbye to this offseason. Because they know they're building around a core of Svetch and Slavin and Aho and Jarvis. And like they know what they're building around. So that might mean some of these guys on expiring contracts have to see you later. So what are the Canes doing right now? They're signing all of these guys to entry-level contracts. Scott Morrow, their most recent first-round pick, Bradley Nadeau. They're signing these guys to entry-level contracts, having them skate with the team now, so they're prepared for it. It might not be fun, but it's a sign of good things happening. If you have to let good players leave so you can pay better players, that's the way you want it to be. So they chose to pay Derrick Brown. Great. You made it as far as Scott Fitterer used to make it. Now you have to keep him. You have to not panic and trade him a year and a half from now. You have to not panic and go, we were wrong. We shouldn't have paid him all this money. Can we get a third-round pick for him? Can we package him to move up to the first-round pick like you did with DJ Moore? You can't panic. You chose Christian McCaffrey, you chose DJ Moore, and then you panicked. Now you're choosing Derrick Brown. Be convicted. Be convicted. Build a defense that you don't need as expensive linebackers behind him because he's gobbling up multiple blockers every play. Build the defense where you don't need to pay as much for corners because he's taken the double team, which is allowing Jadeveon Clowney on the outside to go ahead and get home to the quarterback. Right? So the quarterback doesn't get a pass off. It doesn't matter if the guy was open downfield because the quarterback's flat on his back because Derrick Brown is the guy you paid. Paying him is not a sign of anything new with the Panthers. It's not some new era. It's not, oh my gosh, thank goodness Scott Fitterer could never. He's their former GM. It's not, oh, Scott Fitterer would never. From this point forward, you can separate yourself from the regime that led them to the worst record in the NFL last year, and it gets worse. The worst record in the NFL last year, and you didn't even have your first-round pick. Derrick Brown is your guy. Build around him.